Hi, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my favorite thing about the Bible study Becoming You, and my favorite part about just knowing the Lord as our shepherd in general. As I was studying for over Psalm 23 and over scripture and just about lambs and why in the world God chose lambs to personify us as his children more than any other animal in scripture. They are the weakest, the most defenseless. They are the only animal. They cannot survive without a shepherd. They are the most dense. They're not the smartest animals, and definitely needy creatures. And as I learned about them, one of the most precious moments between Jesus and I happened when I learned about bummer lambs. And what bummer lambs are they are lambs that are born, and for some reason or other, the parent rejects them. The ewe will not feed the lamb. If the lamb tries to come to her for food, she'll butt it and continue to butt it continually every time it comes to her for food or sustenance or even just for comfort or shelter. And eventually, the lamb will lay down and stop trying, and it'll just surrender and just lay down to die. Just rejection completely personified in the lamb. It's the perfect picture of being rejected by the very one who was meant to be the one that this lamb went to for survival. And so what happens to that little creature is that if it's owned by a good shepherd, the shepherd will come along, and this precious lamb will be scooped up into the arms of the shepherd, brought into the shepherd's home, and hand-fed by the shepherd. And it won't live out there in the pasture with the other sheep. It will literally have become a new creature. And it will become part of the shepherd's family, just like a pet. And it'll live in the shepherd's home, be fed by the shepherd or his family, and it won't normalize with the other sheep. It's a whole different creature now that once it becomes a bummer lamb. So the very creature that had been rejected is now brought into the home of the shepherd. And that's exactly what happens to us. So often we come to Christ because we have run up against rejection after rejection after rejection, and it feels like sometimes the very people you love the most, the very people you trust the most, you come to them and you feel like you're just being butt up against them. Maybe it's sometimes because not even because they're mean or they're trying to reject us. It's because they just don't have what we need, and they don't have the love that we need in order to survive. And so we feel rejected, and there's a hole in our hearts that's missing, and the whole time Jesus is just sitting there waiting for that moment where we're just ready to say, I need some help here. I need some help. And he just comes and scoops us in his arms and brings us into his home, and we become part of his family. And if we're honest, that's how we all came to Christ. It's not because we were so righteous and so good that we decided to go into church and be with our own kind that is so great and right. We all came to him because we realized we were broken, we were rejected, and we were bummer lambs that needed a shepherd. And that is one of my favorite things. And one of the scriptures that talks about this is 1 Peter 2:4-6, which is one of my very favorite verses. It says, as you come to him, meaning us, a living stone, rejected by men, but in the sight of God, chosen and precious. Each one of us is chosen and precious by God, no matter where we come from or what our background is or how other people treated us. We are chosen and precious by him. You yourself, like living stones, being built up into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood. No matter what our background is, in Jesus we are holy. We are not only fully righteous, we are holy. It's so crazy because we're still sinners, yet we're holy. We're holy because of what he did for us. To offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ, for it stands in Scripture, behold, I am laying in Zion a stone, a cornerstone, chosen and precious, and whosoever believes in him, that being Jesus, our precious cornerstone, will not be put to shame. It talks about in here further down, and it talks about this in other verses, even in Isaiah 53, that Jesus is a stone of stumbling, a rock of offense, The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. So, beloved, before you were ever born, he chose to become the bummer lamb, the one who was taken out so that you could be brought in. He is the stone that was rejected. As he hung on the cross, there paying the penalty for our sin, he willingly, the one who was always accepted, always loved by God, chose himself to become rejected so that we would never, ever, ever have to know what it feels like to be turned away, to be completely rejected, to have to live in that state of being a bummer lamb, to be personified rejection living in this world. He took himself out so that we could be brought in, beloved. And I just wanted you to know that today, that you may feel like the bummer lamb, but you, beloved, are his, and he will scoop you up in his arms and take you into his home, and you will become a whole new creature in him. And that is the good news of Christ.